Well, the policy change is putting one Supreme Court case in the national spotlight. Gavin Grimm, a Virginia teen, is fighting his school board for his right to use the bathroom that matches his gender identity.
His lawyers argue the Gloucester County School Board is in violation of Title IX by discriminating on the basis of sex. Grimm gave an emotional speech at a rally outside the White House Wednesday night.
No matter what happens, no one, not even the government, can defeat a community so full of life, color, diversity, and most importantly, love.
Amen. And Gavin Grimm is here with us in New York to discuss his case, which is expected to be heard by the Supreme Court on March 28th. It's right around the corner, Gavin. All right, so the first thing I want to get from you is your response to Caitlyn Jenner. What did you think of the comments that she made on Twitter?
Well, you know, I think that she had certain expectations that weren't met, and she wants to be vocal about that and see if she can add her voice to the sea of many that are dissatisfied with what we've seen so far.
And she used your name to almost sort of finger wag the president. We'll see you in court, right?
How did that make you feel when you heard Caitlyn Jenner, when you heard Laverne Cox at the Grammys say that people should Google who you are so that Americans understand what you're going through and what many people around this country are going through?
So getting that shout out from Laverne Cox was just, I mean, it made my year, and it just started. So that's a good thing. We're off to a good start. Well, in perspective.
Right.
You know, I didn't and wasn't watching the Grammys, and my mom, I just hear shrieking from downstairs. I'm like, okay, we've got a home invader, there's a spider, something horrible has happened. Go downstairs, and, you know, it's the Grammys, and she shows me we rewind the TV because, you know,
everybody's
TVs do that now.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
Which is super interesting. I don't know why I went off on that tangent, but anyway, so we rewind the clip and we watched it together, and it was just, I was so blown away that she took the time out of her. I mean, she was at the Grammys. She had that platform for the Grammys, and she took that time without asking anybody, as she said, to elevate the voices of trans youth and elevate this case. I was very touched.
And I'm sure at the time there were many people who probably didn't know who you were, who really did do that, did Google. And then we come fast forward a little bit, and we're here with the Trump administration reversing these guidelines that we've been talking about. So I want to get your impression of that too. When you first heard that these guidelines were going to be rolled back, after he had said, you know, we're probably just going to keep them in place the way they are, the protections in place, you know, when you heard that, what was your reaction?
I wasn't surprised, but I was very frustrated. I think that transgender teens all across the nation, and just transgender people in general, are nervous about how this new administration is going to affect them and their rights. But you know, we're just more emboldened and passionate than ever about the fight we're fighting. You know, myself, the ACLU, other trans rights activists. We will be doing the same thing we've always been doing. The fight has not changed, and people, I think, need to know that there's people like the ACLU out there fighting tooth and nail for their rights.
Now, Gavin, in your school, there's a boys' bathroom, there's a girls' bathroom, and then there's a separate bathroom, right, which is sort of a unisex bathroom. That's the one that they want you to use. And explain to our audience and to the American people why it is that you feel that that's not good enough.
So there's a few unisex options. We, most notably that we've talked about a lot, that I've talked about a lot, are the nurses' restrooms, which are single stall. But then there's these unisex restrooms they constructed as a means to, I think, pacify me, which were turned into bathrooms from utility closets. I think 2 of them were utility closets. So essentially they're trying to literally force me into the closet. It's just incredibly stigmatizing to have spaces where I'm being told you're not worthy of being with your peers in these spaces. You're separate, you're different, you're wrong. You have to stay away from your peers. You have to have a separate location where you cannot share communal space with your peers because something about you is wrong. That's the message they're sending, and it's incredibly, incredibly stigmatizing to go through that. As an individual, you're already a high school student. I mean, you already have things that are going to be stacked against you, especially as a transgender high school student and in a rural conservative area. And then to have a school administration set this kind of precedent within the student body that this student is different and this student is not to be participating in the same capacities as the other students are, it's absolutely devastating. And so for me, it's been humiliating, it's been stigmatizing, it's been upsetting, it's been frustrating, and it's absolutely had a detrimental impact on my ability to perform at school.
So Gavin, you know the counter argument though, and the counter argument is you're not the only one who has the potential of being harmed here. What about the other boys and girls in the bathroom? Maybe they don't want you in there. Maybe your presence is harming them and they need to be protected. How do you react to that?
Well, for any number of reasons, we might not like somebody who we have to share a space with. But if that meant that we had the right to bar them from that space, no one would be going anywhere. You cannot bar people from spaces because people might not like them. That's just unacceptable, and that's discrimination.
The press secretary to the president, Sean Spicer, has argued that this is a matter best left to the states, best left to individual school boards. He was asked repeatedly when he was delivering a presser the other day if this is a civil rights issue. He sort of deflected that. How do you feel? Is this a civil rights issue for you?
This is absolutely a civil rights issue, 100%. And unfortunately, when you do leave civil rights issues to be up to the jurisdiction of each state, people will wait a very, very long time before they see their rights established, if they ever do.
Betsy DeVos was also asked about this issue at CPAC yesterday. Let's play a little bit of what she had to say.
Well, I think the statement spoke to it for itself and to a large extent. But let me just say that this issue was a very huge example of the Obama administration's overreach to suggest a one-size-fits-all federal government approach, top-down approach to issues that are best dealt with and solved at a personal level and a local level. And I have made clear from the moment I've been in this job that it's our job to protect students and to do that to the fullest extent that we can. And also to provide students, parents, and teachers with more flexibility around how education is delivered and how education is experienced, and to protect and preserve personal freedoms.
So, she issued a statement after the guidelines were sort of rolled back, and she reiterated it there that she felt it was her job to protect students. Can you roll back these guidelines and still protect students?
Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. This idea that these students, we worry about them, we care for them, we want them to be protected, we want them to feel safe, we want to protect them from bullying. You can't say that and then put them in exactly the situation where all of these things are going to happen or not happen in the case of the desire for protection. When you have a student that is part of a group that is already marginalized, already stigmatized, already outcasted, already ostracized, and bullied and targeted by peer groups, to send a message that these children are not deserving of communal spaces and to put that kind of target on their back in our public schools and then turn around and say, but they need to be protected, that is the most disingenuous thing that one can do. It's completely and totally counterintuitive to one another. They cannot both exist. It's completely and totally mutually exclusive.
Mm-hmm. Gavin, I want you to touch upon something that Anne-Marie was asking about earlier, to sort of address the parents in America who perhaps don't know what it's like for young people like yourself, because you pointed out that you can understand where some of them are coming from, but I want you to sort of give them a sense that you also understand that they may be afraid because they just don't know, and sometimes people don't understand things, and what they don't understand sometimes makes it difficult for them to accept. What would you say to those folks, to those parents?
So at the core of this, there is a lack of education, there's a lack of understanding. I don't think that everybody that is against transgender rights is a horrible, awful person. I think a lot of people just don't understand what it is and what it means to be transgender. And I think a lot of people just don't realize that we're just normal people. We're not a threat to anybody. We are not, transgender people have been using the same restrooms as everybody else for years and years and years and years, and suddenly we're a threat, suddenly a rash of whatever is going to happen, because people are aware of us now. And that's good and bad. The more people are aware of us, the more accepting things will get, and the better for us things will be. But it's going to get worse before it gets better. There's going to be a learning curve. There's people that are going to be against this, and there are going to be people that are reacting out of fear and ignorance or lack of education. And it's just very critically we get this message out and we tell as many people as possible who transgender people are and what it means to be transgender, and that it really just means that we're people trying to live our lives in the way that's comfortable for us and in a way that's completely and totally non-consequential for anybody else.
Just one last, I'm just curious if you sometimes see, and when you talk to other transgender kids, a difference between how parents think about it and how kids themselves think about it, because kids generally are pretty open, but they take their direction from their folks. I'm just curious if there's a difference between young people your age and younger, and the way parents see things.
Absolutely. A younger and younger, when you go down the line, you see that there's a more open mind and open heart, I guess, policy there. Peers of mine, even if they don't understand it, it's this idea like, I'm not being harmed, I didn't know, I don't care.
You have more in common because you guys play Pokemon, right?
Right, exactly. Like, we all play Pokemon together. Who cares where you're going to the bathroom? No one's, no one's checking genitals in high school. I mean, it's an issue that I think you'll see a lot of people, even if maybe they don't agree with people being transgender, they are realizing, I'm not being harmed by the presence of this individual, so who cares, live and let live. Which is definitely a step up from people saying that men are going to go into the women's restrooms and hurt our daughters. The argument that women will do the same to sons is never made, of course, and then the concern that these evil predators are in the bathrooms with your sons to begin with is also never made, which is interesting. But it's definitely a generational thing. You see these arguments fall apart and stop happening as you get younger.
That's interesting.
Gavin Grimm, thank you so much for coming by and speaking with us. Good luck. March 28th is when the case goes to court. We'll be watching.
Thank you very much.